In the mist of time, at the origin of human civilization, between the two fertile rivers Tigris and Euphrates, there is a story veiled by the dust of ages. A story not only of kings and empires, but also of the entities that shaped our very destiny. Who were they? Ancient inscriptions call them by many names: gods, angels, visitors from the stars, or simply beings who possessed an intelligence far beyond their time. No one can be certain. But for thousands of years, their name has been whispered in forgotten ruins, in the pages of heroic epics. They are the Anunnaki, the culture of Mesopotamia, a tapestry woven from the threads of the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians, is incredibly rich and complex. Historians, like diligent archaeologists, have slowly brushed away the layers of history to uncover the secrets they held. From the renowned Epic of Gilgamesh to countless scattered references in other cultures, the mysterious veil of the Anunnaki is gradually being lifted. To the modern eye, their world is strange and enchanting. For centuries, they were worshipped as omnipotent gods, feared as judging angels, and now, in our space age, many see them as ancient astronauts who visited Earth and brought with them the great gift of knowledge. But the truth about their origin and true purpose is stranger and more astonishing than any theory ever proposed. Prepare yourselves to witness the decoding of a sacred and ancient past. Prepare to see the Anunnaki as they truly were, and in doing so, we will inadvertently discover the truth about so many other things. From the Garden of Eden to the terrifying Great Flood, from the God mentioned in the Bible to the deepest secrets of creation. Essentially, the Anunnaki were a group of ancient Mesopotamian deities. They were central figures in the belief systems of the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. However, even the most ancient texts are not consistent. Their number, roles, and even their identities change with each story, each era. According to the earliest Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki were the supreme gods, direct descendants of An, the greatest sky god in the entire pantheon. Their name, Anunnaki, can be simply translated as the offspring of An. Imagine a royal family of gods, and the Anunnaki were the most powerful princes and princesses. Prominent among them was Enlil, whose power was so earth-shattering that he split the sky and the earth in two. After that great act, his father Anu decided to occupy the heavens and handed over the rule of the earth to Enlil along with Ki, the Mother Earth goddess. Ki is very likely the Sumerian version of the great Mother Goddess figure, a symbol found in countless cultures across the globe. But strangely, despite such power, physical evidence of their worship as a collective is almost non-existent. It seems that each Anunnaki was worshipped in a separate cult, in different cities. It is because of this division that there was no common temple, no single relief depicting all of them together. The rituals and worship practices dedicated to the Anunnaki as a group therefore remain an enigma. The first time they were mentioned as a collective was during the reign of Gudea, of the third dynasty of Ur. The term was used to refer to the most important gods, the children of An. But who exactly belonged to this elite group? One ancient text mentions about 50 gods associated with the ancient city of Eridu. But in another story, when the brave goddess Inanna descended into the underworld, she only had to face 7 Anunnaki. 7 judges sitting on thrones in the subterranean world, and it was they who condemned her to death. They were not alone in this divine universe. There was another group, the Igigi, who existed in the shadow of the Anunnaki, toiling and submitting. Before man walked the earth, an order existed in the universe, an order built on power and servitude. In the Mesopotamian pantheon, the Anunnaki were the ruling class, the great architects. But every great construction needs workers, and those workers were called the Igigi. They were the 6th generation gods, distant cousins of the Anunnaki, assigned the heaviest task: to shape the world according to the will of the supreme beings. For millennium after millennium, they labored without rest. But submission has its limits. A legend of the flood recounts that, after 40 days of hard labor, the patience of the Igigi ran out. A spark of discontent flared into a flame of rebellion. They rose up against their masters. This rebellion shook the foundations of the universe. The order was broken. Work came to a halt. Faced with the crisis, the Anunnaki convened. And it was at that moment that one of the wisest and most cunning gods, Enki, proposed a solution that would change the course of history forever. Instead of suppressing his Igigi brethren, he proposed the creation of a new being, a lesser being born to serve, to take on the work in place of the Igigi. And so, from clay and the wisdom of the gods, man was created. The similarity to the story in the Bible is astonishing. It suggests that the Mesopotamian myths were not just fairy tales, but very possibly the origin, the first draft for many parts of the Old Testament. Man, in the earliest version of his own story, was born not from an act of pure love, but from a practical need, to become replacement laborers for a rebellion of the gods. After order was restored, the Mesopotamian pantheon was rearranged once more. In the Babylonian creation text, known as the Enuma Elish, the god Marduk, son of Enki, rose as a hero. He divided the Anunnaki and assigned them specific roles, establishing a new cosmic order. 300 were assigned to rule the heavens, and another 300 were assigned to rule the earth and the underworld. To show their gratitude to Marduk, the Anunnaki joined forces to build a great structure, the Esagila Temple, a house with its head held high, to serve as a magnificent dwelling for Marduk, Enlil, and Enki. After completing that masterpiece, they continued to build splendid temples for themselves, solidifying their status as the supreme rulers of both heaven and earth. As time went on, the story of their origin became more complex. In later Assyrian texts, the Anunnaki were no longer just the descendants of Anu, but were siblings, the children of Anu, sky, and Kai, earth. Their lineage was traced even further back into the distant past, to the primordial gods of chaos, Tiamat, and Abzu. And it is here, amidst the complex genealogies of the gods, that we begin to see the first clues of an even deeper truth. The texts began to use the names of these gods as designations for celestial bodies in the sky, for the twinkling stars above us. Could it be that these stories of gods ruling heaven and earth were in fact a way to record profound astronomical knowledge? A star map encoded in the form of a pantheon. This is the general knowledge that the texts have left us. But to dig deeper, we cannot just look at the gods. We must look at the people who worshipped them. We must step into their world, the world of the Sumerians. To understand the gods, we must first understand the people who told their stories, the Sumerians. Appearing seemingly out of nowhere around the 5th millennium BC, they were the earliest known civilization. In a world still mired in the Stone Age, the Sumerians built powerful city-states, developed a sophisticated irrigation agricultural system, and created a highly organized society. They were ahead of their time. They possessed profound knowledge of music, poetry, art, mathematics, and science. But most astonishing of all, they were brilliant astronomers. To the ancient Sumerians, music was not just for entertainment, but a tool to describe the cosmos. They invented cuneiform script, leaving us thousands of clay tablets, a stone library recounting their history and beliefs. And in those records, they called the founders of their culture, the Anunnaki, by another name, a name that carried a brilliant secret. They called the gods the Anunnaj, the great children of Anu. This name, along with its variations, is the key. We can find traces of them in the four most ancient primary sources. First, in the Sumerian clay tablets, where they are called the Anunnaki. Second, in the Book of Enoch, where they are described as angels, the Watchers, or the Nephilim. Third, in the Book of Jubilees. And fourth, in the Book of Genesis in the Bible, where they are called by a mysterious term, Elohim. This is where the code begins to be revealed. The word El in Sumerian is often translated as God. But the root of this word, in many ancient Semitic languages, means shining, brilliance. Elohim, the plural form, should not be understood simply as God. It should be understood as the shining ones. If you reread the Bible and try replacing the word God with the phrase the shining ones, you will see a significant difference. The story suddenly becomes clear in a completely new way. The brilliant light of knowledge mentioned in the ancient texts is no longer an abstract concept, but becomes a physical attribute. The source of enlightenment, the flame of wisdom. This connection becomes even deeper when we look at the name Sumer itself. It originates from Shumer, which means land of the Watchers. Amazingly, it is almost identical to the land of Shinar in the Bible, which also means the dwelling place of the Shining Ones. Two names, two cultures, both pointing to one place, both describing one group of people, and the trail of the Shining Ones does not stop in Mesopotamia. In distant Ireland, the term for shining is Ain. This may be related to the Tuatha De Danann, a mythological race described as the shining people of Ireland. Even in Japan, there is an indigenous tribe that looks Caucasian named the Ainu. They have gray or blue eyes and are believed to have lived on the islands of Japan for over 7,000 years. Strangely, in the region of the Ainu, ancient stone circles have been found, similar to those found in the British Isles. As we string these clues together, a new picture begins to emerge. The Anunnaki, or the Shining Ones, were perhaps a people of superior culture and technology. They settled in a valley in the Middle East around 8,200 BC. Their main concern was to establish an agricultural center, a place we might later know as the Garden of Eden, to educate and train the local tribes. They were described as having radiant appearances, being masters of agriculture, and were gradually elevated to the status of gods. We have deciphered the code. The gods were the Shining Ones, perhaps advanced teachers, engineers, and agronomists, but they were not a monolithic entity. They were a family with two sons at its center, Enlil, the Lord of the Storm, and Enki, the Master of the Waters. One represented order and command, the other represented wisdom and cunning. And the rivalry between these two brothers would not only divide their own family, but also lead to the greatest catastrophe in human memory. We have followed their trail through ancient clay tablets, deciphered their names in forgotten languages. The Shining Ones were not abstract gods. They were a clan ruled by Anu, the supreme father god, and his wife Antu. They had two sons, two opposing forces that shaped the world. The elder son was Enlil, Lord of the Storm, who ruled the air and the land from the sacred city of Nippur. He was the embodiment of order, discipline, and absolute power. In ancient texts, he is often depicted as a mighty bull, a symbol of strength and domination. The younger son was Enki, Lord of the Sweetwater Abyss, who ruled over wisdom and magic. He was also known by other names such as Ea, or Oans, the wise half-man, half-fish creature who brought civilization from the sea. Enki was the protector of humanity, a teacher, a divine trickster. His symbol was the serpent of knowledge, coiling in the depths of creation. The bull and the serpent, Enlil and Enki, order and wisdom. The opposition between these two brothers is the center of the cosmic tragedy that unfolded. Surrounding them was a complex pantheon. Ninhursag, the great mother goddess, whose milk nourished all of humanity. Ninurta, son of Enlil, the ferocious god of war associated with the constellation Orion, and the twins Nana, the moon god, and Utu, the sun god, who later gave the code of laws to King Hammurabi. And of course, one cannot fail to mention Inanna, or Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, symbolized by the five-pointed star of Venus. Their genealogy is tangled, full of complex relationships, stories that changed over thousands of years, making the search for historical truth increasingly difficult. But one thing remained constant: the simmering confrontation between Enlil and Enki. An interesting detail that we cannot overlook: the Atlanteans of legend were said to have worshipped the bull. This is a remarkable coincidence, considering the deep connection of Enlil, the bull god, to the most terrifying event in human memory. Legend has it that Enlil had grown tired of the noise of humanity, creatures he considered a failed experiment. He decided that the earth needed to be cleansed. He persuaded the Council of Gods and issued a terrible decree to create a great flood to completely wipe out life. But Enki, the serpent of the abyss who had helped create humans, could not accept it. He secretly betrayed the oath of the gods. He went to a faithful man named Utnapishtim and whispered through a reed wall, warning him of the impending disaster. He instructed Utnapishtim to build a giant ship, an ark, and to bring aboard his family along with the seed of every living creature on earth. The story of Enki and Enlil is not unique. When we cross-reference these shining ones with other cultures, a global pattern emerges. The fish-like beings of knowledge of Enki are similar to the Shemsu-Hor gods of Egypt, who were said to have come from a sunken island. They are also similar to the Naga serpent gods of Hinduism, who also came from a lost land at the bottom of the ocean. The conclusion seems inescapable. The shining ones of Sumer, Egypt, and India were in fact refugees, survivors of a great civilization that had been destroyed or submerged. The story of the Anunnaki, therefore, is not a story of gods from the sky, but perhaps a genealogy written on a cosmic scale, a history of brilliant but flawed beings whose conflicts created our world, and whose echoes still resonate in our deepest myths, and perhaps even in our very DNA. Were they gods, angels, or aliens? Perhaps the answer is simpler and much more profound. They are our ancestors, the forgotten teachers, and their legacy is not just cities buried under sand, but the very story of human existence, a story of rebellion, creation, destruction, and rebirth. The past is never truly lost. It is just waiting to be remembered, and in their story, quite possibly, we will find our own. The Anunnaki appeared as gods emerging from the ocean's depths, carrying the secrets of a sunken world. Ancient records describe them as bringing not only knowledge, but also order. They reorganized the world, systematized the stars, tamed the wilderness, and taught primitive humanity the laws of the universe. But a big question remains unanswered. Why did they feel the need to arrange everything? Where did this order come from? Perhaps the answer lies in their own tragic past. Ancient texts hint that the homeland of these shining ones was destroyed by a global catastrophe, an event so chaotic that its memory was deeply etched into their consciousness, and the clearest manifestation of that catastrophe is the Great Flood. The myth of a great flood does not exist in just one place. It is a red thread running through the mythological tapestry of humanity, from the Americas to Asia, from Europe to Australia. And in Sumer, the cradle of civilization, in the famous king list, It is told that the Anunnaki ruled the land both before and after the Great Flood. After the water's fury had passed, it was they who placed human kings on the throne to reign in their stead, to maintain the order they had established. But the story is more complex than that. If we listen to the records of the half-man, half-fish creatures like Oans in Babylon, we hear of another disaster, a flood even more ancient than the one told in the Bible or the Epic of Gilgamesh. These shining ones had set foot on shore from a submerged land, carrying with them the remnants of knowledge from a lost world. This raises a bold hypothesis. Could all these stories of great floods actually be just echoes, fragmented memories of a single primordial event which occurred in a past so distant that we have not even been looking in the right place? Could scientists, in tracing the flood of Noah, be looking in the wrong era? And if these shining ones could foresee the catastrophe, if they understood the operating laws of the universe, could the birth of a figure like Noah have been a preparation, a prearranged plan to preserve life before an event they knew would certainly happen? The mystery of this prophetic knowledge seems to be encoded in an ancient symbol, a serpent eating its own tail, the Ouroboros. It is not only a symbol of eternity, but also the key to unlocking a deep understanding of the cycles of the universe. The Shining Ones seem to have mastered not only the cycle of the seasons, but also a much grander cycle, a 25,800-year cycle of the Earth, a cycle believed to have begun when our planet tilted from its vertical axis. Could it be that the order the Anunnaki brought was not just social order, but an effort to reestablish a lost cosmic balance? And could it be that the knowledge of that great cycle is the explanation for their prophetic abilities and the key to understanding the entire legacy they left for humanity? The Ouroboros serpent symbol is not just an endless circle. It is a time machine, a cosmic map hiding the knowledge of the greatest cycle the Earth experiences, the cycle of the precession of the equinoxes, a celestial dance lasting nearly 25,800 years, a long breath of our planet. The Shining One seemed not only to know of it, but to live and act according to its rhythm. Imagine the Earth as a giant spinning top. Over time, it does not spin perfectly, but has an extremely slow wobble at its axis. It is this wobble that causes the position of the constellations we see from Earth on special days like the vernal equinox to slowly drift backwards through the 12 signs of the zodiac. Each zodiac sign takes about 2,150 years to pass through. The entire journey through the 12 signs takes 25,800 years. This is a great year of the cosmos. Ancient records seem to believe that cyclical catastrophes, the great floods, are closely related to the beginning and end of this precessional cycle. They believed that the very event that caused the Earth to tilt in the first place started this giant countdown clock. Although modern science may not be able to prove that the Earth's axis was once vertical, the important thing is that the ancients believed it. This belief reveals an astonishing level of astronomical knowledge. They looked to the center of the ecliptic, the motionless point in the sky around which all stars seem to revolve, and considered it the abode of the Supreme Father God. The Sumerians called it Anu, while the Egyptians called it the Eye of Ra. It was the center of order, the throne of eternity, and in their world view, an Earth with a vertical axis, pointing directly at Anu, would be a perfect Earth. That would be a world without harsh seasons, an existence of absolute harmony and balance. There would be no more global catastrophes, no more harsh cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The Earth, like an enlightened soul seeking to escape the cycle of reincarnation, would reach a state of perfect spirituality. The fateful tilted axis broke that perfection, pushing the planet into a loop of creation and destruction. And in this story of those who came from the sky, the Anunnaki are not the only characters. We also hear of the Igigi. In some texts, the Igigi appear to be servants of the Anunnaki, but in others, they are equals and are mentioned together. In the Epic of Anzu, the Igigi are even considered superior, because the Anunnaki belong to the Abzu, that is, the abyss, the deep earth. This immediately reminds us of the image of the Nagas in Hindu belief, wise serpent gods who live in the underwater world, but are no less sacred for it. Could it be that there was a division among the gods? On one side, those who ruled the sky, the stars, the great cycles, the Igigi, and on the other, those who ruled the deep earth, the abyss, and the secrets of the planet itself, the Anunnaki? Against the backdrop of a cosmos operated by giant cycles and a complex divine world, a request was made. Sumerian records tell that Ninlil, the wife of the leader Enlil, asked the council of 7 gods to create an Eden for her, a garden of paradise. This is Eden, or the abode of the righteous in Sumerian mythology, the prototype for the Garden of Eden in the Bible. And this council of 7, like the 7 archangels, descended from heaven, from the cosmic mountain. If the primordial paradise of a vertical earth was lost, could it be that they tried to recreate a miniature version of it right here, on the ground? A perfect garden, a center of knowledge, a place containing the deepest secrets of the Shining Ones, and those 2 legendary trees in that garden, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. What were they really? The tree of life and the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden were not ordinary biological entities. They were the most closely guarded secrets of the Shining Ones, a legacy of knowledge passed down only to the shamans, the masters, the highest-ranking priests over thousands of years. This was not knowledge for everyone. It was a path, a spiritual journey. In a dreamlike state, in esoteric rituals, the shamans saw and experienced a tree that took them straight to heaven. This cosmic tree later became the tree of life in the Kabbalah system of the Jewish people, a complex diagram of creation and the path back to God. It also perfectly reflects the 7 levels of chakras along the human spine, energy centers that, when opened, lead to inner knowledge and enlightenment. And humanity, in an effort to simulate that great spiritual journey, sought to build its own path to get closer to the gods. The Sumerians built great step towers, ziggurats, with 7 tiers reaching up to the sky. They were not just architectural structures. They were artificial mountains, an effort to recreate the cosmic axis, to connect Earth with heaven, just as in the dream of Jacob's ladder. It was believed that these shining gods resided at the top of the ziggurat, in their great house, where the boundary between the mortal and divine realms became blurred. And when we understand that this ladder and these temples symbolize an upward journey of consciousness, we must ask ourselves, was Jacob's dream of a ladder reaching to heaven, with angels ascending and descending, really just a dream? Or was it an encoded memory of a similar structure, some ziggurat in the ancient Near East? The secret seems to be encoded everywhere, not only in stone and architecture, but also in bloodlines and stories told. Jacob, the character who dreamed of the ladder, was also the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, and this number 12 is no coincidence. Jacob, in fact, was the father of the zodiac. Look how subtly the code is embedded. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, is described as unstable as water. That is the constellation Aquarius, the water bearer. Simeon and Levi are 2 brothers, closely bound together. They are Gemini. Judah is likened to a mighty lion, none other than Leo. Zebulun is associated with ships and harbors, an image related to balance, which is Libra. The code becomes even clearer. Gad is linked to the reversed image of the fish serpent god Dak, that is Pisces, and Dan of the serpent tribe is described as a serpent by the way that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider shall fall backward. This falling backward serpent symbolizes the winter solstice, when the sun is at its lowest position and begins its journey upward again. Dan is Capricorn. Just like the later character Daniel, who survived in the lion's den, is again a symbol of the shining serpent Capricorn overcoming the darkness of the winter sky. Now we can see that most of these myths and stories are not simply history. They are the transformation of astronomical ideologies, encoded in human language. The zodiac and the great precessional cycle have been woven into the very tapestry of the genealogies and histories of peoples. They are a key, a means to locate important periods in the past and predict the future. The cycle of the stars is intimately connected with the cycle of our own lives. Many titles bestowed upon historical figures, whether they were real or not, are actually part of this code. This suggests that later leaders and priestly classes, who were considered divine and deeply knowledgeable in astronomy, were all related to a cult of the Shining Ones. They received knowledge and power from this very legacy. If our greatest stories are actually maps of the stars, it means that there was a group of people who drew that map, a lineage of knowledge keepers, architects of myth, who operated in the shadows of history. This lineage of knowledge keepers, these architects of myth, existed in every major culture of the ancient world. They were known by many names: the Seven Sages, the Seven Masters, or the Seven Shining Ones. This number 7, once again, is not coincidental. It corresponds to the 7 celestial bodies visible to the naked eye in the night sky: the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Over time, these erudite sages, men of flesh and blood, were deified. They became gods in human form, the very embodiment of the celestial bodies they studied. Their lives, retold in myths, were in fact a cosmic play. The birth, death, and rebirth of a god were nothing more than an allegory for the journey of a planet across the sky, its disappearance in the sun's light, and its glorious reappearance at dawn. The story of a father god in heaven and a son sent down to earth who dies and is reunited with his father is fundamentally a cosmic myth. It is the story of celestial bodies written in human form, a story repeated in many different forms, from Osiris of Egypt to Jesus of Christianity. The night sky was humanity's first great stage. Where did these shining ones operate? The phrase, "where heaven and earth meet," appears continuously in ancient texts, symbolizing sacred mountains, centers of spiritual power. It could be the majestic peaks of Tibet, where the sky seems closer to hand. It could be the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, or even the Great Pyramids of Giza. These temple structures were built based on the model of the world mountain in the worldview of the shamans, cosmic axes connecting the realms. We can see that countless details in the stories of the Shining Ones are actually based on the movements of the stars, which they understood very well. This knowledge was encoded, embedded in myth as a means of preservation and transmission to succeeding generations who could decipher the code. They also deliberately added misleading information to hide the true meaning from the unworthy. Therefore, the story of the Anunnaki is not just a story of Mesopotamia alone. It is in fact a universal cosmic system observed in the sky. This is why we find astonishing similarities in ancient cultures around the world. The flood myth in the Bible perfectly matches the Epic of Gilgamesh of the Sumerians, and that story ends with the Tower of Babel in Babylon, which was part of the Sumerian Empire. The story of the Tower of Babel is not just about human pride. It is a symbol for the event when the secret knowledge of the Shining Ones, which was concentrated in one place, had to be scattered. The tower fell, languages were divided, and that primordial knowledge followed the migrating peoples to the four corners of the earth. In our search for the Shining Ones, we have encountered many groups, cults, and religions. Returning to ancient Sumer, we find the Egregore, or the Watchers. They were said to be the angels of God in the Bible. And once again, the titles given to them tell us they were also the Shining Ones. Enoch, the forefather of Noah, wrote about them. In fact, wrote for them in the Book of Enoch, a book that was later removed from the canonical Bible. Ultimately, all roads lead back to one starting point. The Watchers, the Igigi, the Anunnaki, the Seven Sages, all seem to be different names for the same group of beings or a wise lineage that sowed the seeds of civilization on Earth. Their legacy is not found in ordinary history books, but is encoded in the stars, carved into stone, and whispered through immortal myths. We just need to relearn the language of the universe to be able to read it. In the stillness of the night, as our minds drift to the lands of dreams and the distant past, there are stories that have been whispered for millennia. Stories inscribed in ancient texts, in the Bible and the Book of Enoch, about beings of light, those called angels, archangels, or cherubim. Our imagination has painted their image, transcendent beings with brilliant wings, cloaked in a sacred aura. They are messengers of God, warriors of heaven. But what if those familiar images are just a veil covering a much more complex and worldly truth? What if we temporarily set aside those wings and look deeper into the original story? When we turn back the pages of the ancient scriptures, an astonishing truth emerges. In the original stories, the angel figures take on a very human form. No wings are described. They are not otherworldly supernatural entities. On the contrary, they are present in a tangible, relatable way, and they carry very worldly missions. Let's consider Gabriel, whose name means man of God. He always appears to announce the birth of a special child. Is this a supernatural miracle? Or the role of a wise man, a learned physician, who possesses medical knowledge far beyond his time? He did not descend from a cloud. Rather, he came, walked, and talked like a human, or like Michael, the warrior and protector. He is not an invisible phantom, but a general, a teacher, leading other angels who also carry swords and fight. Each one of them, from Gabriel to Michael, has a specific mission, a clear role on this earth. They are messengers, ambassadors, bearing the title angel, just as the shamans and sages of ancient times were respected by the people and seen as people of the gods. And then we have the title cherubim. In the ancient language, it carries a thought-provoking meaning, the exiled ones. This detail opens a door to a very fascinating hypothesis. Exiled. Could that be a sign of their true origin? Could it be that they were once ordered to leave some place for not obeying a supreme law? Could it be that place was the Garden of Eden, where they were once the guardians? In Genesis, the land of Nod, where Cain was exiled, also means wanderer, an astonishing coincidence. From cherubim, the exiled ones, to the land of the wanderer. The hypothesis that these priests, these bearers of ancient knowledge, were also wanderers is not too far-fetched a speculation. And then, a key figure appears in this complex picture, Enoch, whose name means the consecrated one. When Cain and his wife gave birth to a son and built a city named Enoch, we see a people consecrated before God. It is Enoch, this consecrated one, who would later become the recorder of the entire history of his people, the fallen wanderers, the people who once shone brightly, but then were scattered throughout the world, becoming teachers, architects, surveyors, and builders of the most mysterious ancient structures that still amaze us to this day. The Book of Enoch opens a tragic chapter, a story that began at the moment when the lineage of mankind had multiplied, spreading across the face of the earth. In those days, they gave birth to daughters of pure and graceful beauty. Their beauty was as clear as a stream, as radiant as the first flower of the season, a beauty that did not escape the eyes of the watchers on high. They, the angels, the children of heaven, who were tasked with protecting and observing, looked down, and in their eyes a strange fire was lit, not the concern of a protector, but the desire of a mortal. They looked upon the daughters of men, and a forbidden thought sprouted. They said to one another, "Come, let us choose for ourselves wives from among the children of men, and beget children." But Semjaza, their leader, understood the weight of this act. He said to them, "I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin." He knew they were on the brink of betrayal, an unforgivable violation of the supreme law. But the fire of desire was too strong. Semjaza's warnings could not extinguish it. They all answered him together, "Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing." And so they swore. 200 watchers together took a mutual oath, a covenant of rebellion. They abandoned their sacred posts, descended to the mortal world, to the daughters they craved. They began to cohabit, defiling themselves with them. They not only shared their bodies, but also began to teach knowledge that did not belong to this world. They taught their wives about charms, about spells, about cutting roots to prepare herbal remedies. The first secrets of heaven had been leaked. From these forbidden unions, a new race was born, a hybrid race, not entirely human, no longer divine. The Book of Enoch calls them the Nephilim. The Bible calls them giants. They were great beings, with a height described as up to 3,000 ells, a number symbolizing extraordinary stature and unimaginable power. Their existence was a burden the earth could not possibly bear. These giants had an insatiable appetite. They consumed all the possessions, all the food that humans produced. They ate relentlessly until the fields were bare, the granaries empty. And when humans had nothing left to feed them, the brutal nature of the giants began to emerge. They turned against mankind itself, devouring them without mercy. Chaos enveloped the land. But their fury did not stop there. They began to sin against all species, against the birds of the air, the beasts of the field, the reptiles, and the fish in the water. A bloody slaughter took place across the planet, and then, in the depths of depravity, they began to eat one another and drink the blood of their own kind. And then the earth, in its utmost agony, could no longer remain silent. It raised its voice in accusation against the lawless ones who had trampled upon it. The lament of all creatures, the cries of innocent people, combined into a tragic threnody, echoing up to the blue sky. From heaven, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down. What did they see? They saw a world submerged in blood and lawlessness. But the rebellion did not just stop at creating giant creatures. A more dangerous kind of knowledge, a seed of destruction, had also been sown in the minds of men. When the guardians of heaven looked down, they saw not only the blood of mankind being devoured by its own giant children, they saw a deeper corruption, a virus that had infected the very soul of humanity. The crime of the fallen was not just the mixing of blood, but also the leaking of knowledge that was meant to belong only to the shining ones. A rebellion of knowledge had been ignited, and the leader of this rebellion was Azazel. Azazel taught men how to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates. He showed them the metals hidden deep within the earth and taught them the art of working them. In just a moment of history, man leaped from crude tools to weapons of destruction, War on a scale and with a brutality never before seen was born from this knowledge. But Azazel did not only teach of war, he also taught of vanity and deception. He taught how to make bracelets and ornaments, how to use antimony to beautify the eyelids, how to recognize and mine precious stones, and how to create all manner of colors and tints. Man began to hide his true nature behind sparkling masks, and primordial truth was replaced by artificial beauty. And the corruption spread like a plague. The other leaders of the fallen also began to disseminate their own secrets. Samyaza, who had hesitated at first, now taught about enchantments and root cuttings for sorcery. Barakiel revealed the secrets of astrology, about the meaning of the constellations. Ezekiel taught knowledge of the clouds. Arakiel taught of the signs of the earth. Shamsiel taught of the signs of the sun, and Sariel taught of the course of the moon. All the secrets of the universe, the knowledge that the Shining Ones had accumulated over millennia, were now indiscriminately exposed to a race that was not yet ready. The result was total chaos. Much godlessness prevailed. They committed fornication. They were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. As men perished by the sword, by disease, or by the claws of the giants, they cried out, and their cry, desperate and pained, ascended to heaven. All of this was seen as a blatant violation of the supreme law established by the Shining Ones themselves. Their knowledge had been stolen and used for evil purposes. An accusation rang out, like thunder among the stars. You see what Azazel has done, who has taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. And the accusation also targeted Samyaza, who had been given authority to rule over his associates, who had let them go to the daughters of men, defile themselves, reveal all kinds of sins, and let the women give birth to giants, causing the whole earth to be filled with blood and injustice. In the midst of this crisis, Enoch, the consecrated one, the scribe taught by the Shining Ones themselves, was chosen. He was no longer just a historian. He was made a messenger, an intermediary between the Shining Ones and the fallen ones who had abandoned their divinity to live among the tribes of men. Enoch was sent, not to reconcile, but to pronounce sentence. He was commanded to find the rebels and tell them that a harsh verdict had been rendered, an unshakable judgment. A punishment was about to be executed. The sentence was pronounced. The punishment that Enoch brought to the rebels was not fire or the sword. It was a cleansing, a great wipeout carried out by the very thing that had nourished life. The answer to their sins was water, a great flood. It seems the Shining Ones wanted to completely wash away the defilement on earth, a defilement created by their own fallen children. In the Bible, we are told that God, or rather the gods called Elohim, spoke to Noah. But the warning was not just about a heavy rain. He said that from the time of the flood onward, the summers and winters would become harsher. This is an astonishing detail. It implies a fundamental change to the planet, a climatic and geological transformation. The Book of Enoch supports this detail. In it, it is written that in those days Noah saw that the earth had sunk down and that its destruction was nigh. He cried out in desperation, "Tell me what is being done on the earth, for the earth labors and is violently shaken." This was not an ordinary flood. The Bible describes an even more terrifying event. "Behold, the Lord makes the earth empty and makes it waste and turns it upside down and scatters abroad the inhabitants thereof." The image of the earth, reeling to and fro like a drunkard, suggests an event of cosmic proportions, perhaps an impact or a polar shift of the planet. Psalm 68 writes, "The earth shook, the heavens also dropped at the presence of God." Even the great philosopher Plato, in his works, described a terrible cataclysm in which the earth moved back and forth, to the right, to the left, up and down, wandering in all 6 directions. So, which god ordered this wrath? Over thousands of years, many scholars and researchers have acknowledged an astonishing truth. The God of the Bible and his angels seem to be another version of Anu, the supreme god of the Sumerians, along with his sons and their retinue, who were called the Anunnaki. The name Anunnaki can be translated as the Shining Ones, a similarity that cannot be ignored. It is told that it was the Anunnaki who landed in the region of Mesopotamia, and there they created the Garden of Eden. And so after a long journey through ancient texts, we must come to our conclusion. When we began our mission to explore the angels and the Anunnaki, we were faced with a series of complex and mysterious stories. But gradually, by analyzing the names, places, and myths, a surprisingly simple truth has been revealed. Thousands of years ago, a catastrophic event of planetary scale occurred. A people with superior knowledge and wisdom had to flee their homeland. Eventually, they landed in Mesopotamia, where they encountered a less developed indigenous people. Civilization suddenly exploded. The newcomers taught the native people how to build, mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, and countless other sciences. Their wisdom was so great that over many generations, they were worshipped as gods, as angels descended from a shining heavenly host. But a division occurred when the 2 cultures interbred, making the bloodline less pure. The story of the fallen Watchers and the displeased Shining Ones is, in fact, the mythologized memory of a cultural and genetic conflict. In our era, this story is further complicated by attributing an extraterrestrial origin to the Anunnaki. However, perhaps we do not need such fantasies. We only need to understand the era, the culture, the belief systems, and the minds of our very human ancestors. Because the great gods and angels in mythology perhaps did not come from distant stars. They came from a lost chapter of human history itself. And their stories are not fairy tales, but echoes, coded memories of a forgotten truth waiting to be heard in the stillness of the night. Do you recognize this structure? Across all continents, throughout the flow of time, humanity has left indelible marks upon the earth. Amidst the vast white sands of the Egyptian desert, the pyramids rise majestically, challenging the millennia. In India, the masterpiece of the Taj Mahal shines like an immortal love poem written in marble. And in the East, the Great Wall of China is like a giant stone dragon, a testament to the will and strength of an entire nation. But let us turn our gaze to the southwest of Vietnam, to an ancient land, where hidden within old forests is a structure whose grandeur can rival any wonder in the world. Massive, towering spires reach straight into the blue sky. Temples, bas-reliefs, and immense corridors are crafted from millions of large stone blocks, fitted together perfectly. All of it creates a majestic, incredibly mystical Angkor Wat. It is no coincidence that this place is called the precious jewel of the pagoda tower country of Cambodia. The Egyptians are always proud, for they believe their ancestors erected one of the greatest structures in history. The Cambodian people are the same. The symbol of Angkor Wat is even respectfully printed on their national flag as a reminder of a glorious past. And every time one sees it, a great question echoes through the centuries. Who truly created this magnificence? We have every right to be skeptical about the true owners of these structures. Why? Because even with the most advanced science and technology of the 21st century, we still cannot fully explain how the ancients, with their rudimentary tools, built the pyramids or Angkor Wat. How was the city of temples in Cambodia built? And who is the true master of the great Angkor? Angkor Wat, a temple complex with an area of over 1.6 million square meters, is the largest religious structure ever built on the planet. Centuries ago, Western scholars were stunned unable to believe that the ancient Khmer people could have created such a magnificent temple. In 1586, a Portuguese cleric named Antonio da Madalena visited the temple. He had to exclaim in amazement at its beauty and grandeur, stating that it is such an extraordinary construction that it is not possible to describe it with a pen, particularly since it is like no other building in the world. It has towers and decoration, and all the refinements which the human genius can conceive of. To understand its scale, let's look at the overall map. Surrounded by a wide moat and a 3.6-kilometer-long enclosure wall, the main temple of Angkor Wat is structured into 3 distinct tiers. The overall architecture takes the form of a pyramid with 5 central towers rising high, symbolizing the legendary Mount Meru of Hinduism, believed to be the center of the universe, the abode of the gods. The lowest tier, with large pools that are now dry, was once where the king performed purification rituals. The second tier, symbolizing the mortal world, is a large courtyard surrounded by galleries and shrines. But it is the third tier that is the most breathtaking. It symbolizes heaven, with the tallest central tower soaring 65 meters high, considered the dwelling place of the deities. These 5 towers create an architectural silhouette that has become immortal, a symbol of harmony and supreme architectural beauty. However, the most astonishing thing lies not just in the scale, it lies in the detail. The temple was built on the principle of placing the stones first, and only then did the artisans begin to carve. The proof is that on some pillars, there are still traces of unfinished bas-reliefs. The lifeless stone blocks were hewn with unimaginable precision, the statues bearing lifelike, vivid expressions. Could a work demanding such skill and sophistication truly have been created solely by human hands of the 12th century? Or was there some other transcendent intelligence that guided them? What transcendent intelligence breathed life into these inanimate sandstone blocks? To answer that question, we must go deeper into the heart of Angkor Wat. Let's step into the long, cool, deep corridors. Here, time seems to stand still. Natural light filters through the stone window frames, dancing on the walls covered with stories told through the art of sculpture. This is a miniature world of the Hindu cosmos, and in that world, more than 3,000 Apsara nymphs are dancing. They are not monotonous copies. Each carving is a unique individual with completely different postures, costumes, and expressions. Some smile demurely, some are mysteriously contemplative, while others exude a lively joy. The hands of the ancient Khmer artisans had reached a master's level, turning hard stone into soft, graceful lines, making the viewer feel as if they could move at any moment. Imagine the process of creating them. Millions of tons of sandstone were transported from the sacred Mount Kulin, dozens of kilometers away. They were rafted down the river, pulled by the strength of men and elephants, then skillfully placed into position by craftsmen with almost absolute precision, without the need for any adhesive. Their sheer weight and perfect fit alone have kept them standing for nearly a millennium. But the quintessence of Angkor Wat lies not only in art, but also in science. In the area of the second-tier tower, a complex drainage system was found, designed to protect the entire temple from the torrential rains of the tropics. In some of the large chambers, there are very mystical places. If you stand in the right spot and gently pat your chest, a resonant sound will echo back, deep and low, like a drumbeat from the void. An incredible acoustic technique, calculated and built in the 12th century. The ancient, mystical beauty of Angkor Wat remains almost intact, perhaps thanks to this durable sandstone, which has helped the structure remain largely unscathed by the harsh flow of history. And just when you think you have admired all the wonders of the Khmer Empire, not far away, another structure will leave you speechless with astonishment once again. The Bayon Temple. If Angkor Wat is the epic poem of Hinduism, then Bayon is a Buddhist monastery in stone. Each tower consists of 4 giant divine faces, with mysterious smiles exquisitely carved, facing the 4 cardinal directions. Dozens of towers, hundreds of stone faces, have silently observed the world for centuries. To this day, no one, not even the most brilliant scientists or the local people, can fully explain the meaning of these expressions. A serene smile, eyes that seem to hold a sorrowful pain, or a deep contemplation beyond human understanding. Who are they? Are they the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, or the portrait of a great king who considered himself a god? Those stone smiles remain one of the greatest and most captivating mysteries of Angkor. From the lively Apsara dancers to the enigmatic faces of Bayon, all are a testament to a civilization with an extraordinary level of technical and artistic skill. A structure of such cosmic proportions must surely have been conceived by a great mind. A civilization that reached the pinnacle of art and technology must surely have been led by an outstanding leader. According to archaeological remains and surviving official historical sources, this man is considered the soul behind the grand structure of the Cambodian kingdom. He is Suryavarman II, the legendary king who reigned over the Khmer Empire from 1113 to around 1150. Under his reign, the empire reached the zenith of its power and prosperity. He was a mighty warrior, a skilled diplomat, and a devout Hindu. History records that it was he who ordered the construction of Angkor Wat as a temple to honor the god Vishnu, and also as his own final resting place, an immortal mausoleum to rival the gods. The main reason modern historians consider King Suryavarman II to be the builder of Angkor Wat lies here. This is the only bas-relief found in the entire complex that depicts his image, along with Angkor Wat. It was discovered after the temple was rediscovered in the mid-19th century and has become the most important piece of evidence linking the king's name to this wonder. At first glance, everything seems logical. A great king builds a great monument. But do you feel that something is not quite right when observing this bas-relief? What we want to point out here is the contrast. When compared to the grand, intricate, and complex Angkor Wat, it seems that the bas-relief of Suryavarman II is too simple, small, and even somewhat superficial. Ask yourself this question: why would a person who created an entire universe of stone, a work that required transcendent calculation and masterful sculpting skills, be immortalized in such a modest and faint manner? In history, the Egyptian pharaohs carved their names and images on every wall of their tombs. The Roman emperors erected giant statues to glorify themselves. So why at Angkor Wat is the mark of the king, who is supposed to be the master of the work, confined to a single, almost anonymous bas-relief among thousands of other works of art? This forces us to raise a major question. Was Suryavarman II truly the first and only master of the Angkor Wat architectural complex? Or was he merely an inheritor, a finisher who placed the final seal on a structure that had existed long before? The question of the creator remains open, and it becomes even more mysterious when we look at the next chapter in Angkor's history: its abandonment. After the Khmer Empire fell into decline in the 15th century, the great Angkor Wat was gradually abandoned and forgotten. To this day, people constantly wonder, why would such a monumental work, such a magnificent stone city, be forsaken by people? Some theories suggest that bloody wars with neighboring kingdoms forced the population to evacuate. Others believe it was due to a major religious shift, as Theravada Buddhism gradually replaced Hinduism, causing the old temples to lose their central position. There is also the opinion that the complex irrigation system, which was the lifeblood of the entire empire, experienced an irreparable failure, forcing the people to migrate elsewhere to find water sources. Whatever the reason, the great city sank into oblivion, was gradually swallowed by the tropical jungle, and became a legend. Centuries passed, and it remained only a whisper in folklore, until one day a French explorer strayed into this lost kingdom. What he found changed history forever. The answer, or perhaps even bigger questions, began to emerge in 1860. A French naturalist and explorer named Henri Mouhot, during his journey to explore the remote lands of Siam and Cambodia, had heard rumors of a lost city, a great temple hidden by the green jungle. Guided by an irresistible curiosity, he ventured into a place uncharted on any map. After many days of trekking through forests and crossing streams, he stood before a sight that no words could fully describe. From within the dense jungle, a stone wonder appeared, the temple that the local people had always known, yet was completely unknown to the Western world. Overwhelmed and astonished, Henri Mouhot wrote in his journal words that would later change everything. One of these temples, a rival to that of Solomon and erected by some ancient Michelangelo, might take an honorable place beside our most beautiful buildings. It is grander than anything left to us by Greece or Rome, and presents a sad contrast to the state of barbarism in which the nation is now plunged. Like other early Western visitors, Mouhot could not believe that the Khmer people he met could have built such a structure. He mistakenly assumed that it must have been built by a vanished ancient civilization, perhaps contemporary with ancient Rome. Mouhot's notes and detailed sketches upon publication created a sensation in Europe. The world suddenly realized that hidden deep in the forests of Southeast Asia were the ruins of a glorious empire they had never known existed. His discovery opened a new era of archaeology at Angkor, attracting countless scholars to study, translate inscriptions, and gradually piece together the true history of the Khmer kingdom. Thanks to them, we know about Suryavarman II. Thanks to them, we understand the meaning of Mount Meru, of the Apsara dancers. But after more than a century of research, the veil of mystery has not been completely lifted. The true history of Angkor Wat still has many missing pieces. Who was its true master? Was it Suryavarman II alone, or was he the heir to an even more ancient structure, a legacy from unknown kings erased by time? How did they build it? By the mere intellect and strength of humans, or was there some help, some source of knowledge that we cannot explain today? And why did they leave, abandoning an entire magnificent stone city to be reclaimed by the jungle? Perhaps we will never have the complete answer. And perhaps it is this very mystery that is part of Angkor Wat's eternal appeal. It is not just an architectural structure. It is a whisper from the past, a testament to the extraordinary creativity of humanity, and also a humble reminder that there are great things that lie beyond our comprehension. Today, Angkor Wat still stands there, majestic between earth and sky, where giant tree roots embrace the stone walls, where the mysterious smiles of the gods still silently observe the flow of time. It is an immortal heritage, not only of the Cambodian people, but of all humanity. A precious jewel, forever shining, waiting for us to come to contemplate, to listen, and to wonder about the marvels that the past still holds hidden. For centuries, we have believed in a single story. Angkor Wat is the legacy of the Khmer Empire, built in the 13th century under the reign of King Suryavarman II, a mausoleum for the king, a great Hindu temple dedicated to the god Vishnu. But what if this widely accepted story is missing its most important pages? When archaeologists began to clear and restore the structure, they were faced with a strange thing. Amidst the countless massive stone blocks, there was absolutely no trace of a conventional settlement. No ruins of houses, no cooking utensils, weapons, or clothing. The most basic items of a community that once lived and worked here. Instead, there was only the presence of the monuments themselves, stark and silent. This leads us to a bigger question, a question about the historical context itself. The reign of King Suryavarman II, the period when Angkor Wat was supposedly started, was a time when the Khmer Empire was in decline. History records that this king was even defeated and killed in battle during the invasion of Jai Viet in 1245. Just a few years later, in 1250, the neighboring kingdom of Champa also briefly occupied the Khmer. A faltering empire, a depleting treasury, a defeated king. Would there be enough resources to create a structure of this magnitude? Let's try a comparison. To build the Forbidden City in China, a wonder with an area only half that of Angkor Wat, it took 14 long years, with the labor of 1 million workers and 100,000 skilled artisans. A little closer, in Vietnam, to build the tomb of Khai Jin with a much more modest area, King Khai Jin had to raise taxes across the country by 30%. Massive structures are always built with the money, effort, and even the blood and tears of an entire nation. So, with an empire in a period that was not very strong, where did the Khmer get the resources to build Angkor Wat? How could they create a wonder that surpassed even the Forbidden City in scale in such a volatile historical context? This question is like a crack in the perfect historical picture we once knew. It forces us to rethink. If the Khmer were not the true masters of this work, then who were the ones who truly created Angkor Wat? The answer may not lie in the old pages of history, but hidden in a mysterious map of our planet itself. In the last few decades, scientists have discovered that many famous ancient structures on Earth lie on mysterious straight lines, called ley lines. These are lines of energy that run around the globe, connecting the most sacred and mysterious landmarks. And what's astonishing is that one of these ley lines runs straight through Angkor Wat. It not only passes through the ancient temple of the Khmer, but also connects to the Egyptian pyramids, the giant geoglyphs on the Nazca Plateau in Peru, and even the mysterious stone statues on Easter Island. Is this a random coincidence? Or is it a sign, a clue leading to a greater truth that we have never known? Let's temporarily leave the Cambodian forests and look at the bigger picture of our planet. These ley lines are not just a vague concept. They are an incredible geometric network, linking ancient sites with an almost absolute precision, with an error margin not exceeding 1/10 of a degree of latitude. One of these mysterious circles, with its epicenter in the icy southeast of Alaska, has strung together Angkor Wat with Easter Island, the Giza pyramids, the figures on the Nazca Plateau, the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro, and even the ruins believed to be of the legendary continent of Atlantis. Many call this the meridian system of the Earth, because it not only runs through structures of extraordinary architecture, but is also a place that holds countless mysteries that modern science has yet to decipher. These structures seem to share a common characteristic. They could not have been created by ancient people in the 5,000-year-old civilization that we know. Let's look at the giant drawings on the Nazca Plateau in Peru. Perfect lines, depicting animals and complex geometric shapes, can only be fully appreciated from the air. Who created them, and for whom to see? Think of the giant Moai statues on Easter Island, silently gazing out to sea. How could a primitive civilization carve and move stone blocks weighing tens of tons all over the desolate island? The story becomes even more complex when we come to the Giza Plateau in Egypt. Scientists have discovered signs of severe erosion caused by seawater on the pyramids, and especially on the Sphinx. This indicates that these structures must have existed there for thousands of years, submerged in seawater, long before the 2500 BC timeframe that Egyptologists still acknowledge. An even bolder theory suggests that the Great Pyramid was not a tomb, but an ancient power plant, and the evidence supporting this idea is growing. Another important detail often overlooked is the difference in quality. Compared to the three Great Pyramids with heights of over 100 meters and incredibly durable construction, the other pyramids in Egypt are shorter, with cruder and much less stable architecture. They also do not show signs of seawater erosion. This has led to an astonishing explanation. Perhaps the three Great Pyramids are the products of a prehistoric civilization, a civilization that existed long before us. As for the smaller pyramids, they were actually built by the Egyptians of our current civilization as a simulation, an effort to recreate the legacy of those who came before. It is this simulation that has caused confusion for later generations about the true origin of the greatest wonders. What does all this mean? It means that Angkor Wat may not be an isolated case. It could be part of a forgotten global heritage. It is very possible that this temple was not built by the 13th century Khmer Empire, but is a work of the same prehistoric civilization that created the Great Pyramids. If this hypothesis is true, if Angkor Wat is also a legacy from that prehistoric civilization, then is there any physical evidence right at the temple itself that can prove this seemingly impossible thing? The evidence for a different history of Angkor Wat is perhaps not far away, but is eternally engraved on its very own stone slabs. First, let's look at the construction problem from the perspective of modern mathematics and engineering. Amateur archaeologist Praveen Mohan has presented an astonishing analysis. To complete Angkor Wat with an area of 1.6 million square meters, at least 10 million cubic meters of stone had to be used. If we accept the hypothesis that King Suryavarman II built the structure in 37 years, and the workers labored continuously for 12 hours a day, then the total time they had was about 9,723,600 minutes. This means that to meet the deadline, they had to transport 1 ton of stone from a quarry 80 kilometers away, then process, carve, and assemble it completely, all in just 1 minute. 1 ton of stone per minute, continuously for 37 years. That is an impossible feat, even with the advanced technology of the 21st century, let alone with the rudimentary tools of 900 years ago. Recently, Japanese scientists discovered a 32-kilometer-long canal system, believed to be an efficient route for transporting sandstone, significantly shortening the construction time. This discovery seems to have reinforced the hypothesis about the Khmer, but it only answers the question of how. It does not explain the contradiction in the craftsmanship itself. Let's observe very carefully. The divine figures carved on the stone pillars from the time of King Suryavarman II are extremely intricate, smooth, and the joints between the stone blocks are so tight that a knife blade cannot be inserted. However, the Buddha statues carved during the later reign of King Jayavarman VII are extremely rough and sloppy. Why is there such a world of difference in the craftsmanship between two generations just a few dozen years apart? The loss of technology usually takes hundreds, even thousands of years. Within the Angkor complex, there are even small towers built very carelessly, in complete contrast to the technique and aesthetics of the main structure. It seems as if two civilizations, two different levels of technology, coexisted in one place. And then, inexplicable mysteries begin to appear, knowledge beyond its time carved into stone. On one bas-relief, an image was found of a person using a strange object to observe a battle between the gods. That object was identified as a telescope. History records that the telescope was invented in 1608, that is, 400 years after Angkor Wat was built. How could a Khmer sculptor have known about an invention of the future? The astonishment does not stop there. On another wall, there is a carving of a 4-tusked elephant. This is the Gomfo there, a real animal in history, but it went extinct 2 million years ago. How did an artist from 900 years ago know the appearance of a prehistoric creature when the science of archaeology had not yet been born? But perhaps the most astonishing evidence lies in a stone depiction of the Hindu sun god sitting in the center, surrounded by 9 people with their hands clasped in prayer. Many researchers believe this is a model of the solar system, with the sun in the middle and 9 planets revolving around it. Remember, Neptune was only discovered less than 400 years ago, and Pluto was not even found until 1930. Both of these planets are invisible to the naked eye. A telescope, a creature extinct for millions of years. Accurate astronomical knowledge of 9 planets, all carved into stone 900 years ago. Where did this advanced knowledge come from? It does not belong to the 13th century, nor does it belong to any recorded civilization in history. Could this be the legacy, the signature left behind by a greater civilization? A civilization that may have once ruled an entire giant city, now sunk into oblivion. The answer to the final mystery has perhaps been revealed, not by the picks and shovels of archaeologists, but by the eye of modern technology from space. In 2007, a team of international researchers using satellite imagery and remote sensing techniques came to a shocking conclusion. The Angkor complex was not just a cluster of separate temples, but the center of an ancient megacity, the largest pre-industrial city in the world. This city spread over a huge area, from 1,000 to 3,000 square kilometers, connected by an extremely complex infrastructure system. It was a true hydraulic city with a network of canals and reservoirs designed to systematically manage, store, and distribute water, serving a population estimated at up to 1 million people. This is where the final contradiction arises. If such a powerful and civilized megacity truly existed under the Khmer Empire in the 12th century, they would surely have been the world's #1 power. Their heritage and civilization would have been widely transmitted and recorded. But that is not the reality. The history of this empire is full of puzzling gaps. So, there is only one final hypothesis, one that can reconcile all the contradictions. It is very possible that the giant hydraulic city and the core structures like Angkor Wat are the legacy of a prehistoric civilization, people who appeared before our 5,000-year-old civilization. The later Khmer kings found these great ruins. They did not build them from scratch. They settled, restored, and built new structures of their own, like Angkor Thom, with lesser quality and durability. This explains everything. The disparity in craftsmanship, the anachronistic astronomical knowledge, and the impossible construction problem. It is also similar to the story of the Egyptian pyramids. Later generations confused the works of the successors with the legacy of a forgotten original civilization. Flowing water erodes stone. The dust of time can bury great truths or cause structures to gradually disappear. But Angkor Wat seems to be an exception. Despite the vicissitudes of history, despite the changes of time and tide, amidst the silent flow of time, this great monument still stands majestically there, existing with the ages. And regardless of who built it, it now belongs to us, the people living on this planet, a heritage for us to admire, a mystery for us to endlessly explore. If one day the curtain of secrecy about Angkor Wat is fully lifted, it might cause us to rewrite the entire course of human history. So, do you believe in the hypothesis that the greatest treasure of archaeology today, Angkor Wat, is the product of an advanced, forgotten civilization? Or even a mark from beyond our planet? Don't forget to leave your opinions in the comments section below. For now, goodbye, and see you in the next videos.